Hello, my friends. Thank you for being with me today. Today, I'd like to talk about de-dollarization. It's a very important trend that is happening if you've been following global news, or if you haven't. It's something that's a very significant trend to pay attention to. I want to talk a little bit about it, what it is, and then also talk about what we can do as individuals to really prepare for the effects of de-dollarization. So first of all, de-dollarization, it's kind of what it sounds like, right? So if you think about D anything, right? If you talk about um, you know, D decolonization. There we go. Okay, so decolonization obviously was a process of um, countries that were formerly colonies of some great powers, right, being freed, right, establishing their own independence, right. So that means literally just to take something away. De-dollarization is an interesting and very imminent trend that's been happening, and you can, again, if you Google it, if you look it up on YouTube, you'll find quite a bit about it. And it really was accelerated with the sanctions that were implemented on Russia during the war in Ukraine, because as soon as Russia was pushed off of the SWIFT system, which was the international banking information system, as soon as that happened to them, they basically were forcibly de-dollarized. In other words, they couldn't do business in dollars. So they immediately started thinking about what are their alternatives, working with rubles and what are called currency swaps, looking at other stores of value other than bank accounts, right? So precious metals, looking at the use of their natural resources, also looking at creating new relationships with other countries. So interesting thing is that after Russia was kicked off of the dollar, the strength of its currency actually went up, right? And its economy is projected this year in 2023 to do better than that of Germany and the United Kingdom, right? And that says a lot for you to have been kicked out of a system, and then within a year you're doing better than the people who kicked you out of the system. That says a lot. And other nations are now looking at Russia's situation and thinking to themselves, obviously, if this guy was kicked out and he's doing better, then how can I kind of sneak out, or maybe keep one foot in and one foot out? But otherwise, the bottom line is, how can I realize the benefits of being outside of the dollar system that people always assumed was an absolute necessity to surviving in the modern world? But Russia, by necessity, has proved that that's not the case. So that's what de-dollarization is about. And if you look, you'll see throughout South America, I think there was a group of 11 South American nations that are all experimenting with de-dollarization. A large part of the African continent, spearheaded by South Africa, is exploring the options around that as well. The Middle East, there are countries in the Middle East that are now looking to do commerce, including the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Iran, which has already been fairly isolated, but even Iraq and others are now looking at ways to do business outside of the US dollar. Right? Now, of course, the obvious thing is, if there is at some point, less demand for the US dollar, then of course what that would mean is that the value of the US dollar in our bank accounts, in our pockets, will fall. And that's called inflation, right? That basically your dollar it correlates to less and less goods and services over time. So we can expect that during the course of de-dollarization, which appears to be, people expect it to be a relatively gradual thing, although there could be some, rapid events that force it, like last year's war, to force it to accelerate. But the bottom line is that it could be this could be a gradual decline in our buying power, and of course also in the value of our savings that are held in US dollars. So, okay, that's the background. I'd encourage you to do a little more research. There's a lot of people talking about this, and I think it's an important thing for us all to be aware of. Now, what can we do about it, right? And I'd like to recommend or just throw out 7 different things that some of which I've seen other people do and seem to be very successful, some of which I've personally done and they've helped me quite a bit. And I just wanted to throw out 7 ways that we can look at alternatives to the dollar, wherever we're living, whoever we are in the world, right? And I think there's some obvious ones like real estate, right? So if you have your money in a bank account, but you can take that money and put it into some kind of property, right? Property will always have some value. Now, it is possible that with de-dollarization, the value of land and assets in general in the United States will fall because the benefit of being in the US will fall, if that makes sense. If the currency is no longer as strong, then the actual real estate and the location of being in the US at some point would actually become less and less appealing. But at the same time, land will always have value and will always have utility. I mean, just to live there, to be able to, have shelter, to be able to have, to be able to plant, if you have to actually plant and grow crops or whatever it might be, land has value. So converting into land is one thing. Another thing which is related, another asset, is precious metals, right? A lot of people, if you do some research on this, you may have already seen this, that gold and silver and other precious metals have been disappearing from the world markets. Central banks appear to be accumulating these things, right, as well as individual private buyers. So taking your cash money and converting it into a precious metal, similar to real estate, that metal will always have some value. And it's also something that wherever you take it, you show up anywhere in the world with a gold coin, you're probably going to be able to get lunch, right? So that's a second thing, precious metals. The third that we can talk about is foreign currencies. So the currencies, what are the currencies when people are de-dollarizing that they are actually substituting for the dollar, right? And what that would mean is the obvious one is the Chinese yuan. That's becoming a more in-demand and popular currency. And I recommend that if you're interested in currencies, doing a little bit more research and perhaps looking for ways to do foreign exchange where you're actually owning and perhaps even creating bank accounts that are in various currencies. That could also insulate against any changes in the dollar, the value of the dollar. Another one is, getting into more of the softer side of things would be actually investing in a business, right? Taking your money and using it to actually purchase an enterprise or establish an enterprise, whether it's a small business that you create yourself. The benefit of businesses is that not only do they have assets, but they also are revenue generating, right? So that the business has its own inherent value, and then it also can kick off cash for you in under different circumstances. And businesses are often portable, where if you're doing something like, I'll give you an example, let's say that you're a software manager, software development manager. You could do that here in the US, but you could also do that in China, right? You could also do that in South America, Africa. There are a lot of places if you have a certain skill set, or if you're a freelance contract traveling nurse, right? Nursing is a global field. And so if that's your business, you can take it on the road with you, and that will give you security. And if you invest in your dollars in establishing yourself as a traveling nurse, then you can basically convert that talent into currencies of various types wherever you go in the world. So that's another thing. Business is a big deal. I'd say after that, we can also look at, let's see, art. And art is another thing. Of course, that's an area that I've invested in a lot, because I've invested in movie production. And then, of course, we then take those movies and we amortize them, and we capitalize them through rentals and through distribution channels and the rest. So, but art of different types can appreciate. If you're someone who appreciates fine art and you purchase art, take your dollars and turn them into something beautiful, like a painting on the wall, or a sculpture that has some meaning and significance, similar to gold and precious metals. That if you take that art somewhere and wherever you are in the world, if it is genuinely valuable art, people will pay you something for that art, right? And you will not starve, right? So art is also a great investment. And then I want to talk about the two softest ones, quote unquote, but the two most powerful ones in my opinion. And that is relationships, forming and establishing and supporting relationships with people around the world is incredibly powerful. So at the time, I didn't know what I was doing completely. I had an intuition, but I've seen the benefits since then. I took about $130,000 of my own savings and I invested it in freelancers, in contract workers all over the world. Right? I took that money that I had and I put it in the pockets of web designers as I was building my business, right? Web designers and social media managers and computer programmers and video editors and writers and all these amazing people who themselves as freelancers are business owners. So in many ways, I was investing in their businesses and at the same time investing in these relationships with these great people. So if I needed to kind of get away from the dollar and go to a country, go to Kenya or go to Brazil, right? Or go to Sri Lanka or go to India or a number of other countries that I've done business and I have really good friends and relations there. Those relationships can be very powerful, right? Because just as I converted my dollars into wealth and success for my team and my partners, my relationships here, at some point, there may be a time when the dollar is so weak that someone in India or someone in Russia or someone in China would be able to return the favor, right? And take their strong currency and use that in exchange for some task that I'm doing to support my friend over there. So relationships are key. And then the final one I'd say is take those dollars and invest them in yourself. Convert your dollar savings into an investment in yourself. And what does that mean? I mean, that means one, educating yourself, right? That means exposing yourself. If you have to travel, exposing yourself to information, going online, taking online courses, going to events that might benefit you. If you have to pay for the event, pay for it. Buying a book or books, right? Whatever it is that will actually help you improve. That's mentally, right? And of course, you can look at joining a gym, buying a little bit more, spending a little bit more money to buy really high quality food so that your health is better. Because when and if the economy shifts, right, you may have to make some big moves. And it's going to be much easier for you if you're in good health, if you're at your very best. So I would say the ultimate response to de-dollarization, the potential of de-dollarization, is to take that money and invest it. If you have dollars, invest them in yourself. Invest them in your relationships for sure, and these other things are also options. But number one, invest in yourself. Get yourself in tip-top condition, mentally, physically, financially, obviously, right? And in all other ways. And if you position yourself in that way, you'll have a lot more. You should, have a lot more confidence that whatever comes down the road, you'll be able to adapt. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. I'd encourage you, again, don't take my word for any of this. Do your own research, investigate, and then come up with your own solutions. But I will say that those who are living on the dollar and those who are who have stockpiled a lot of cash, right, and don't have any of these other things, you may want to look seriously into diversifying. So thank you again. I hope you guys benefited from this, and I'll see you in the next one.